Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about frost dates. Now what do you mean frost dates? Right? Why do I care about frost dates? Well, I'm going to tell you. So there are two frost dates that you have to think about. One is your first frost date, which happens in the fall, and the other is your last frost date that happens in the spring. And so they're both really important dates for you to really think about because that kind of defines your growing season, especially for your warm, loving plants. But not exactly for your cold hardies. So you have to think about your cold hardies a little differently because your cold hardies can probably go out a little bit before, maybe 60 days, depending on your area, how quickly you can work the soil, and making sure that the temperatures at nighttime are about 36 degrees and above. And then you can plant them out and kind of extend your growing season and not just rely on your last frost date. And you also want to think about um, as you're moving forward on the other end as well, that when your first frost date hits, some of your cold hardies can tolerate a gentle frost and they probably could survive a little bit past that frost date because they have sugars in their leaves, and that's what helps prevent them from freezing. Unlike the warm plants, they don't have that same sugar level, so therefore the frost kills them off almost immediately. I mean, they just don't stand a chance. So it's really important to think about that. And your warm hardies, you want to make sure it's at least 50 degrees at night. So when I'm talking degrees, I'm really talking about those nighttime degrees because that is what you have to think about to make sure your plant survives. Because during the day, it's going to warm up. We know that with the sun and things like that, but then it cools off, especially early in the spring and late, late into the fall. So let's get into it. Let's illustrate on a calendar what I'm talking about when it comes to frost dates. So in zone 6B right here, April 28th, that is my last frost date, which means that I can begin planting outdoors on May 12th. So I have a 2-week period that we kind of give a grace period to make sure that there isn't any unexpected frost so that your warm loving plants won't be bothered by it. And this is a great period. See how I highlighted in yellow? This is a great period to begin the hardening off period, so that way you're ready to put it in the ground on May 12th. You don't have to wait till May 12th to begin the hardening off period, because those temperatures at that time are likely going to be above 50 degrees. It's the nighttime temperatures that you have to worry about. So for the cold hardy, I think a lot of gardeners miss out because they focus on this date and then this date. But in my area, my cold hardies can be planted about March 15th. That's when the ground is workable and it's typically above 36 degrees. And so it usually is not a problem, which means then I have to plant my seedlings 8 to 10 weeks, which is in beginning to mid-January. So you could see there's a real opportunity there. So you can start planting out. And then if you look at this date compared to April, it's about 8 to 9 weeks. Then as soon as you get your cold hardies out into the ground, guess what? You have room now under your grow lights to begin growing your warm loving plants. So that's really a bonus. So the other thing that I want people to think about the cold hardies like a bookend on a book. So you have your cold hardies first, then you have your warm loving, but then moving into fall, your cold hardies can go out again. So you'll have two opportunities to harvest with cold hardies. So as soon as you plant into the ground here, then indoors, your grow lights again are free. Start planting your cold hardies again, the seedlings, and then you want to put them out sometime in July. I'm usually around July 7th, July 14th, and that way, by the time they get more mature, their likelihood to bolt is less likely because it starts cooling off in this area, and then the cold hardies have a better opportunity to be able to survive. So that's how you have to look at it. Now, my first frost date is October 20th. So you can see I have a pretty long growing season here. And so we want to take advantage of that. So basically, I'm turning the warm days of 178 days in my zone, I'm tacking on more time in the beginning and more time in the end. And so that's really helpful as well to make sure we can extend our harvest as long as possible. Now this date, September 14th, that is our fall equinox. And so this is the date that I look at to plant garlic. I do not plant garlic before the fall equinox. So I wait for this, and then in this period is when I would start planting garlic to make sure that it's in the ground, because the ground is still workable. It hasn't frozen yet. It gives the garlic an opportunity to have its roots grow. And then you could see that's about a month before the first frost. So it gives them time to be able to do what they need to do. Let's recap. So here I put it in a different way, more linear, so that you could see what I'm talking about. So on January 4th, you plant your cold hardy seeds. March 15th, you transplant your cold hardies outside. March 15th, you plant your tender seeds or warm loving. On April 28th is the last frost date. And so that 2-week period is when we use that time to harden off our warm loving plants. May 12th, we transplant our tender plants outdoors. May 12th again, we begin sowing our cold hardy seeds. July 7th, we transplant our cold hardy outdoors. September 14th is the fall equinox. We plant garlic after this date, but soon after this date, don't wait 2 or 3 weeks. And then October 20th is the first frost date. So that's Zone 6B recapped. Well, thank you for joining me on this video, and I hope you learned something, and I hope it was helpful as well. This is how we grow together. And remember, your warm-loving plants, you need to make sure you harden them off before you plant, as we described in our chart. And cold hardies, they really don't require hardening off. They can really just go right out into the garden right away. So until next time.